The Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast proudly sponsors the 24-hour Board Game Marathon, a charity event based in Ilminster, Somerset, raising monies for Cots for Tots Bristol, a charity that specialises in helping neonatal babies in intensive care. For more information, look at their website, the 24hourboardgamemarathon.co.uk, or find them on Facebook.
Welcome to Whose Turn Is It Anyway, your board gaming podcast where we occasionally talk to guests from the industry. This expansion pack episode is no different because we have got none other than Dávid Turczi himself joining us for an evening chat to talk all about board games, design, and mainly Star Trek Captain's Chair, which we're so excited to get into. So let's just not waste time. Let's just jump over and meet Dávid. So we are here and very, very excited to introduce Dávid Turczi onto our show. And I'm actually geeking out right now. I don't know about you, Kerley, but
yeah, definitely.
It's like when we started this podcast, Dávid, it was like, wouldn't it be awesome that we can get one of our favorite designers on the show? And here you are. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's a great honor. And I'm just one of the nerd crowd too.
Yeah.
Just at the right place at the right time, nerding. So, okay. I'm always glad if somebody is willing to listen to my ramblings for a few hours.
Gladly. I mean, I met you, I think, in person for the first time at UK Games Expo last year. You probably don't remember, Dave, because you've probably been bombarded by so many people.
I'm just simply terrible at remembering.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. And
look, last year, Essen, it took me almost a minute to recognize Ian O'Toole, and I've been in several meetings with him. So it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, and we were just kind of nerding out and geeking out about Voidfall, and you were just chatting about that, because I think that was the latest game that was kind of hot on the press at the time. So yeah.
Last year Expo, yes, because we were delivering it in the late summer.
Exactly. So I was trying to get as much as I can out of you at that point, but it's all good.
Good luck.
So yeah, I mean, what we do, Dávid, is on the show is that we typically kind of open up and we like to kind of understand the designers' kind of favorite games and things and what they like to play. And this is the hardest question I'm going to probably ask you, which is, what is your favorite game of all time? And it can be one of your own, as we've talked about off the recording. But what is your favorite? What sticks out?
Well, I've been at it for 10 years, so my favorite has gone through a lot of changes. Like, I was introduced to proper board games via Battlestar Galactica, but big 6-hour merry trash fun is not something I would have the patience to play these days. So whereas for years I would have definitely said that as my favorite. Or then I like the one game that stays with me for years and years is Glory to Rome, because it's the game that's light enough that you're having fun instead of just burning your brain, but it's heavy enough that you're feeling smart.
Okay.
So that's one that always comes to me. When it comes to proper heavy Euros, my back garden, then historically I always said Tricarion, and then I haven't played it for a long time, and then I tried to play it once half a year ago, and turns out I'm too old and not smart enough for it anymore. So the game did not get less good; I got less good.
That's what happens with Tricarion, though. You got to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, Victor and Richard has created a everlasting piece there.
Yeah.
And the Kanban EV is the one Lacerda that doesn't matter how many times I play, I cannot find anything to complain about. So that's awesome. I played Tashkalar 200 times and then went and made an expansion for it, played it another 200 times, and not a single time since. So
this is a theme, though. It's a theme that you enjoy a game and then you go, you know what? I'll help you with the expansion. And definitely the solo mode, definitely.
That just happened to Aeon's End, yes. Yeah. I played Aeon's End last summer 40 times in a month or something, because it was one of only 2 games I took with me on a holiday, and I don't normally play solo, but Aeon's End is like just on the border of light enough that I can take it on a holiday, but heavy enough that I'm not, just wasting time.
Yeah.
And when I came back from the holiday, I sent an email to the designers/publishers saying, "Hey guys, I have an idea for an expansion." They were like, "Yeah, we have plenty of ideas how to generate content for this." Like, I know how to that you can generate content for it, but when have you last designed a new mechanism for the game?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Okay, we're listening."
Yeah.
And you might have seen the Kickstarter, like it's out.
Yeah.
So, and while that was on, I've played Aeons and another 20-ish times. Obviously, they've played it hundreds of times during the testing, but they're experts. I've not even cracked 50 plays altogether. And since we finished working on it, I haven't played it a single time. So it's this thing all over again. It's if I want to enjoy a game, if I want to have I think the only game that I can still consistently play without needing to work on it is Spirit Island. So
Okay.
So I guess it is my favorite game by default because that's the only game I'm currently playing more than once.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the fact that you was talking off the mics, and you were saying obviously you're just so busy. Like the amount of projects that you're probably spinning at the same time. I wouldn't even hazard a guess of the number of projects that you've got. Like, it's loads.
People overestimate the number of projects I work on because the solo modes are all about like giving something to the community while raising my visibility. But on an average solo project, I work 2 to 3 working days.
Okay.
While on an average game, I work if only 2 months.
Yeah.
If only 2 to 4 months net, then this was a small project.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there is something like Perseverance that has been the second biggest project for the past 8 years. So
has it been that long? 8 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
8 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, 8 years since we showed it to the publisher. 9 years since we started.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's like actively designing right now. One late stage where I'm just making tweaks based on what the publisher is asking. Content for. I can't stop designing stuff for Star Trek just because I don't have to.
Yeah.
Nigel and I are working on another Imperium-like game that will be revealed at all in due time. I'm working on one new design, and I'm working on one new like design, which is finally in late stage, and the publisher is taking care of most things, and I just have to make sure that I'm happy. So yeah, I'm actively designing our 5 or 6 games. Plus, we've announced Voidfall's expansion coming next year, so I guess that counts as a whole project as well. Although I haven't done anything on it in the past 2-3 weeks. So yeah, it's about half a dozen projects I'm actively designing, and then another half a dozen that I occasionally reply on an email. And I need to mute something because something is beeping in the background, and people don't need to listen to
you got lots of notifications because again you've got that many projects, you see, so people just David, what about this rule, what about this mechanism, what if we do this? So you obviously got a lot of projects on the go, and it's fair to say that you really love collaborating, right? So I know you've done quite a few designs with Nigel Buckle and loads of others, Danielle Tashini. I mean, we could literally reel off the names. So do you favour collaboration in your design space now rather than kind of just attack it solo, not counting your solo modes or bigger projects?
Even my solo modes are collaborations.
I suppose they are.
Of Nick Shaw, John Albertson, David Digby, Xavier Guardes, a bunch of people. You might have noticed I don't shut up ever, which makes designing things on my own pretty awkward. Because if you talk to a quiet room all by yourself for too long, they tend to lock you up.
Yeah.
So, plus, it's much more exciting when, if I have a good idea, somebody says great idea, and if I don't have a good idea, then they can say something that I either can bounce off or can tell them that it's a great idea. So, so that's part one. Part two is I was in the very lucky situation many years ago that I went from a absolute amateur nobody to the designer of Anachrony overnight. So
touche, well done on that. We have to say that.
I mean, yeah, sure, I'm very happy with the game I designed, but most of the reason why the game was seen is Mind Clash's genius, and we've always seen Dracarian, and we've talked about it. So I don't pretend that I got here all by myself, because I didn't. I learned everything I know from Mind Clash, and then once I was standing there and suddenly, the big names of the industry were talking to me, then I was like, okay, sure, you know it better than me. Show me. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And then they started talking, and then I was like, okay, but what if we do it that way? And then they were like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then I absorbed a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And then the story I always like to tell is that when I worked with Daniel Tascini, then he was the inventor and I was the developer, putting his ideas into a game. And then 3 years later, when I worked with Luciani, then I was the inventor and he was the developer putting my ideas into a game. So it's like, what I learned from one, I put it into the other. So
come full circle.
It's for me, this is a form of learning. And from Vital Lacerda, I can learn how to make these big and integrated systems. From Martin Wallace, I can learn how to make the intuitive leaps of the theme and the experience and the whatnot. But if I want, streamlining, then probably neither of them is where I'm going to learn for it. And I'm not even trying to be the best of I haven't found yet what I am the biggest expert of in the world of, but I feel like that I can talk to any one of them and hold my ground with them, and that makes me feel like I can have fun in any crowd. Like last year, at the convention, we were guest stars at the same time. I met for the first time Jason Matthews, the designer of Twilight Struggle, and he's the least wargamer end of the very wargamer people, and I'm the most thematic end of the very Euro people. So our views on how games should be are very, very close together. It's just coming from
different fringes, but on
So we had a lot of fun talking together, and I really hope something someday will fall out of that. So because I have this what's the word, bucket list of people I need to co-design with, and
collaboration wish list. Wow.
Yeah. So. That sounds cool. That sounds cool. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because like anything, you can do things on your own, but if you've got those people to bounce off and to challenge you, it's
even
good.
Even if a game is credited only to me, that just means that I collaborated with the team instead of the person.
Yeah.
That the idea I took there was, instead of 30% finished, was 60% finished, and then instead of one person adding 70 to 50% to it, it was a bunch of people adding 30 to 50% to it. So
exactly,
like next time I'll have something new with Board and Dice in a year or two. You'll find out when you need to. That'll be credit just to me. But at this point, the development team have redesigned multiple systems significantly, but all of them are in the direction that I wanted the game to move into. So it's like, it's a collaboration. I am co-designing against their bouncing wall in a way. So, and when I work with publishers that I know and trust, and I know how their development team works, then they're allowed to cut up whatever the hell they want with my game, because I know they're not gonna do stupid.
Yeah, it's the trust, isn't it? That the product at the end is going to be something that makes sense.
Working on an Imperium-like game is a very different experience, because the 4, 5, 6 people that we work with on our private little, very loudly beeping Discord channel is between the 6 of us, there is like almost 1,000 games of Imperium and another 300 to 400 games of StarTech logged, which means no publisher's development team can ever say anything that we haven't discussed 20 times already in the past 5 years. So 4 years. What year is this? 3.5 years since we started working on Horizons. So that is a lot bigger responsibility. And in a way, that's why I'm almost more excited about Star Trek than any of my other games, besides it being Star Trek, that I am the boss there.
Yeah.
Like not in a business sense.
No, but you're the lead. on the vision, you lead on how it's going to
be. Exactly. In every other project, I come with a vision, I explain it to people, I sell them on that vision, and then I ask them, so what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Whereas with Voidfall, Nigel and I led the ship together, and Victor from Mindclash had the final override that he almost never had to exercise, and when he exercised it, we were usually arrived at the same point by then, so it was never a disagreement. And for the last half year to year of development, we handed the keys over to Mihai Mința, who's, interestingly, he was my first co-designer 10 years ago when I started, and now he works at Mindclash as their in-house developer, and he wrote the rulebook for Voidfall, he ran the testing, and he did a lot of the final tweaking. So these days when I get a rule question on BGG, I ask him what the answer is, because it's like,
because he's in the matrix and he's, he knows.
Exactly. So in those senses, yes, I was in control, but I had many people between me and the Oblivion making sure that everything works.
Yeah.
Whereas on Horizons, and especially on Star Trek, it's what me and my small cadre of advisors say goes.
Yeah.
And that's both terrifying and incredibly exciting.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Especially since the last time I made a game where nobody challenged me, we also what Defense of Procyon 3 turned out to be, which is a magnificent art project that hasn't been republished for a very good reason.
Fair enough. I've not played it. I've heard about it, but I've not played that yet.
I'm really proud of it. It's a really fun game. One of the 4 factions is a bit swingy, but BGG has figured out how to fix it.
Yeah.
But you'll only have fun if you play it exactly like I want you to set up the game, hand out the rule books, trust me. And like a significant part of the audience is incapable of trusting such an insane idea. and also it's a 1 to 4 player game that is great at 1 and 4 and
not so great in the middle.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So like I've repitched it to like 5 other publishers, and they all went, yeah, this is great, we're not publishing this. so that was young me doing an absolute art project and enjoying it. Luckily, Star Trek turned out to be a little bit more responsible than this.
That's fair. Let's talk about the latest Star Trek game, which is Star Trek Captain's Chair. So I've known that you, and many people in the hobby space have known that you've been doing something with Star Trek for a long time.
Very quietly shouting for over a year.
Yes, like, I'm doing a Star Trek game, but I can't tell you what it is. And I'm not going to tell you until a certain date and everything's been lined up and I'm allowed to say it. And recently you've
now imagine those poor handful of people who have played the game over the past year.
Yes.
And they've been sitting on it and they were not allowed to say.
I mean, that's the trust right there, right? So I know you've been kind of going, look, I've got this secret game that I can't tell you about, but I want you to try it out because it's freaking awesome. So here you go, let's have a game, but you're sworn to secrecy, and if you tell anyone, I'll kill you, kind of thing. So what is Star Trek's Captain's Chair? What's it all about?
You play as a captain, and your deck is your crew, your ship, or your friends' ships, your allies, your gadgets, your basic commands, your signature moves, etc. And you play a somewhat similar to Imperium deck builder, tableau builder game with it, where you play the cards out. Some of them stay on the table, some of them go away at the end of the turn. You can buy new cards. The cards you buy, the 4 market suits are called person, cargo, ship, and ally. So essentially people, stuff, things that move, and lots of people.
Yeah.
So that's how thematically we grouped everything. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to secure locations, which is where your resources come from. You are trying to achieve encounters, which is like sort of mini missions unique to every human captain has the same sort of mini mission to achieve to get the encounter, but a Klingon captain will have a different one. And for Imperium players, that's sort of like getting a fame card, but it's a lot more, not complicated, but like a lot more unique than just the glory card was in Imperium. It's a lot more built into the system, not just a pop your table. And the third one is that you have 3 specialties: research, influence, and military. And certain effects in the game push you up on those tracks. And certain cards get either stronger effect if you go up on that track, and certain cards don't have innate victory points, but their victory point comes from how high you are on the corresponding track.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the 3 main strategies. Besides this, every time you reshuffle your deck, you gain 1 new card from your reserve deck, a mechanism that will be familiar to Imperium players. And when your reserve deck runs out, you can every time you reshuffle again, you can buy the development card, which tend to have better scorings, bigger effects, but they cost resources. Again, for Imperium players' reference, it is a lot less necessary to get to your developments. So the strategies are a lot more open and a lot less about deep efficiency. There is no Barbarian Empire switch or anything like it. There's no accession card, because those were thematically driven things in Imperium. Those are there because it made a lot of sense in history. It does not make any sense in Star Trek, so we did not do it. It's the game's mechanical construction is built on Imperium, but everything was taken apart and questioned from block 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the starting idea was the tracks can replace the star cards as a simpler way to motivate people to collect different things. It's like, collect things that push you up the blue track, and then collect things that score you for being high on the blue track.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I don't need to come up with so many cross-scoring conditions. Once this idea was born and how this can be made thematic in the Star Trek world, then it's like, all right, now let's go through every single mechanism Imperium has, and every single one it doesn't have that needs to be in a Star Trek game, and question them one by one. And that's how the locations, which is a completely new stuff, we came up with. We knew we wanted the encounter cards because we loved the fame cards, but we knew we wanted something much more live than just pop your regions. So there is no A/B side to your captain. However, you have a player board with the 3 tracks, and on the top of the player board there are missions.
Mm-hmm.
And the A side, which we now call basic, not B, because we learned from Imperium. On the basic side, you have only 1 mission, and you don't get victory point for it. And if you don't do it, then your tracks are worthless.
Mm-hmm.
But your tracks are scored 1 to 6 or 1 to 7 for a few captains. And on the advanced side, your tracks are scored 0 to 5 or 0 to 6 for a few captains. But you have 3 missions, and they do score victory points, and you have to complete at least one of them. Which means
more strategies, more options.
Exactly. And we don't give the 3 missions to the newbies, because what tends to happen is that you tend to complete all 3 of them halfway. So for newbies, it's like, pay attention to that one thing, don't forget to do that, and whatever you buy, it's going to be worth at least a victory point. It's fine, go. Whereas for experts, exactly. Whereas for experts, it's like, well, if you are a completely peaceful captain and you buy 3 military cards, that's gonna be 0 victory points for you. So,
which thematically makes sense as well. Like, if you know the universe and you know Star Trek, and you'll know, a Klingon captain is going to be probably a little bit more aggressive than a peaceful human Starfleet captain. Not all of them, but some of them. And so for those Trekkies that are kind of out there, they should know thematically which way to lean, and it's just then learning the mechanics, right, to go, that's the best thing.
And that's another thing that was a big, like, almost fundamental rethinking of the what can an Imperium-like game do, was the player count. Because Imperium was originally designed as a multiplayer game, and we gradually shifted our focus to the lower player counts based on what worked better. But the core elements were always designed to work at any player count, which means they were full of compromises. which you can most visibly see on the steel effects and on the solstice.
Yep.
Because we used to have start of turn effects in Imperium, and in 3 and 4 player that really doesn't work because the downtime becomes so big that you ask somebody's like, hey Bill, did you finish your turn? No, I'm just about to start. Then what have you been doing for the past 3 minutes? Whereas if everybody is doing those 3 minutes in the solstice, then it's a lot less bad. So that one, and the other one is the attack. Is the stealing one material in a 2-player game is like, okay, whatever. But stealing one material in a 4-player game is a significant boost to your economy.
Yeah.
And vice versa, popping a region in a 4-player game is hit and miss, but popping a region in a 2-player game when you know that your opponent is down to that one region they need is a huge attack. So the attacks in Imperium aren't, they're side effects. They aren't the point of the card, which made it like the people who don't like attacks were like, oh, why are they here? The people who like attacks were like, these are not attacky enough. So we didn't like our cake. We wanted it more cakey and eat it too. Yeah. And that's what putting the game to 2-player only, well, 1 and 2 player only, but the 1 player is a 2-player with the bot, allowed us to do. We came up with the 2-player because of the location mechanism is essentially a tug of war, and we tried a 3-player tug of war, and holy hell, it was complicated. So we're like, could we not? Yeah. But the moment the idea of making the game 2-player only came up, then the 2 biggest wins was the resupply step, which is at the beginning of your turn, get a bunch of incomes, go.
Do stuff,
And we put the most complex things we can put in the resupply step to a much lower maximum than what's the most complicated solstice is in Imperium. So we've learned the what's okay and what's not okay. And the second one is the attacks. You can go a lot longer without an attack, even with an aggressive deck in Star Trek. And even when you have an attack in your card, you'll probably pick the other option and not attack the opponent. But when you choose to attack your opponent, it will matter. You will do it because that's what you need. You will do it because you see how it matters to the opponent. Like the best example of this is probably the first thematically designed card, the Tribbles, which says, it's been a while, I don't remember the card by heart, but the important part of it is that the effect continues with, if your opponent has a Klingon duty officer, they must dismiss it and take an additional incident, and you gain an additional glory. So it's like losing a duty officer is akin to popping somebody's region. So it's like that card is a medium, okay, nice cargo for anyone. But if you're playing against somebody with a lot of Klingon persons, for example, a Klingon captain, then it becomes an amazing trip hazard. Yeah. So it molds the strategy. There's only like 2 or maybe 3 general purpose attacks in the entire game, I would say, like the Romulan Bird of Prey from Balance of Terror. That's like, I think, the only general purpose attack in the base command box, in the market decks, if I remember correctly. There might be one other that I'm forgetting, but like we didn't need general purpose attacks because all the attacks are about, what do I need? I need to bounce his duty officer. I need to kick out that away team so that I can secure that location. I need to give an incident so that if we get into a burn situation, then they have one more than me. So they are all very precise, very
targeted. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So they never feel randomly mean. They're always like, I deserved that.
And I think that's one of the things, like when I've been watching some of the information and the interviews that you've done and kind of going through some of the card examples, and the fact that even in Imperium, you had lots of choice, right? When you get your opening hand, and even what you have in your tableau, depending on what factions you play as. But just the sheer, like, here's one card, and you can do this in 3 different ways. There's the 3 different, like, you can lean it to left, right, or forward. And it's like, okay. And that's not even playing it.
A person can be played or promoted.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have 2 play operations. a directive, that's the basic action cards like the gray stripes in Imperium. Those have usually 2, sometimes 3 operations, and if they have 3, then at least one of the 3 is not an action. So just saying, oh, I want to play Analyze. Okay, but is it one of my actions or is it not one of my actions? So yeah, that's the other thing. In Imperium, every card plays an action except if you say it's free play. Here we turn it around. Nothing is an action except if you say it is.
Yeah.
And for most card plays, we say that it's an action. And for most activations, we don't say it's an action, but we're very comfortable with making cards not an action and with making activations actions. So it makes things a lot more natural than just making it about exceptions.
Yeah.
So
and it's very clear because on the card you have the action icon, don't you, right next to the operation. So you know, that's going to cost me 1 of my 3. Or actually, it doesn't have one. Yes, I can play it for free.
I found the tribbles.
Yeah.
Gain 1 influence, gain 1 latinum, junk a card from the market. Your opponent takes an incident. Dismiss all of their Klingon duty officers. If any were dismissed, force them to discard a card.
Yay for tribbles.
Yeah, there's going to be, I'm guessing, a lot of Easter eggs in there for Star Trek fans as well.
Yes.
Because the tribbles, weren't they the scourge of the tribbles of Klingon Empire? I absolutely hate them, right? Which is the way that one.
I mean, everybody who played it, hardcore enough Trekkie fans, the first thing they always start giggling on is when they pull the koala from the encounter deck. So that's the Easter egg about the Easter eggs. So it's like lower decks has been a heaven sent because, you know, Star Trek is amazing and also hilarious and also terrible in a lovable way, you know.
It's wacky, isn't it?
But on the other hand, you also can't make fun of it in an official product. Except if lower decks already made fun of it. Because then you're quoting lower decks.
Then it's lore. Then it's fine. Yeah.
Exactly. So
secretly one of my favorites lower decks, actually.
I haven't watched it. I'm going to have to give it a go.
So good.
It's top 5 series for me as well.
Really? Okay.
On its average day, and it's top 2 on its good days.
I'm watching it now.
So,
it's really good.
Yeah, that's on my list.
And the other series I keep convincing everybody to watch is Prodigy, that most people skip because it's a kiddie series. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Don't skip it.
No.
Noted.
So there's only 1 Prodigy card in the base box, but it's the most valuable card in the game. So
there you go. It's all weighted, isn't it? There we go.
Yes.
So just a quick question from me then, David. How much of a Star Trek fan are you? And I kind of know the answer to this one, so I'll expand on that a little bit. Did it change your way of designing it? Did you enjoy it more? Did it make you approach it in a different way? Being such a big fan.
I am an all-purpose sci-fi nerd. Like, if tomorrow you told me to design a Stargate SG-1 board game, it would probably take me 30 seconds to be this nerdy about that and just go. Yes, I always was a huge Star Trek fan, but like I've never dressed up in costumes. I've never collected Star Trek stuff. I'm not a hardcore fan person. I'm an all-purpose can get excited about anything good sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, omni sci-fi.
Yes. Yeah. And also have an unnatural tendency of remembering unnecessary details about everything.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which means once I start thinking about, I need to design a card about a influence gathering pirate that wants to spend resources to quickly grab things. Okay, that's a case on Radar. So it's like I open Memory Alpha either when I dig for ridiculously obscure things or when I check how his name is spelled.
Yeah.
Or when all I remember is that dude from that Deep Space Nine episode who sent his ex-wife to seduce Odo. What was the name of their species? And then I figure out which episode that was, and then I look up the name of the species. So
I think we're probably at a similar level, actually, because I have to say I did a minimal amount of kind of research on some of the captains, because I looked at the pictures and I was like, right, I know what's going on here. For an example, I wasn't a big fan of Enterprise. Not necessarily. I haven't watched it very much.
Then Enterprise is on its average days is slightly weaker than Deep Space Nine. On its best days, it's better than Deep Space Nine.
See, when I say I'm not a fan of Enterprise, I mean I haven't given it a chance. That's really what I mean. So I don't dislike it.
Enterprise season 4 is the best. Like the last season of the 90s Star Trek is the best season of the 90s Star Trek. And you can quote me on that.
I think my problem with Enterprise, actually, because I did watch a couple of episodes at the start, is that I can't unsee Archer as Quantum Leap. That's my biggest problem.
Oh boy!
From when I was a kid, and it's difficult to then be.
I love Quantum Leap.
And if you want to make, and if you let me make a Quantum Leap board game,
that'd be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Oh, please do. I'd buy that in a nanosecond.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
love Quantum Leap.
I've only seen 2 episodes of the new series, but then I heard they cancelled it. So now
there's no point. No.
Now I'm not motivated to watch it anymore.
although to be fair, DS9 is my favorite series. So
I totally know where you're getting from. It's like almost all, like most of my top 10 episodes are in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you say I can pick one season that I can watch through, and only one season from all of Star Trek, that'll be the 4th season of Enterprise. That is my
onto
my viewing list then.
Yeah, I've got some Star Trek to catch up on. I grew up with the not so great ones. So, I say grew up.
I mean, be careful with what you're going to say.
No, I think most of the community would agree. Like Voyager is the one that just pops out from my youth. I know it's not the most fan favourite Voyager. A lot of people hate on it.
I mean,
but it is what it is.
I have my issues with it as well. But there's a lot of people whom it spoke to, because the people who wanted more TNG-like things, it did TNG-like things in a sort of more exciting way.
Yeah.
So people who wanted that, it delivered very well. People who wanted Battlestar Galactica before Battlestar Galactica was a thing were very much disappointed.
Yes.
So Voyager very badly failed at being Battlestar Galactica, but luckily that gave us Battlestar Galactica.
Which was awesome. So.
Yes, exactly. Which was created explicitly as a response to Voyager failing to be Battlestar Galactica. But and I love most of new Trek as well, except Picard. I don't know what happened there.
Not seen it.
It was a bit too slow for me. The first season was just so slow. I kind of lost a little bit of interest.
That is the least of its problems. I don't mind it being slow.
It just wasn't very good.
What I always wanted, I don't know if you remember, but DS9, the end of season 4, beginning of season 5, with the whole Klingon attack. Oh no, wait there. The Next Generation, end of season 4, beginning of season 5, where Picard gets kidnapped and the whole Borg thing. And I kind of wanted Picard to be the whole thing when he was on that French vineyard and he went back to Earth and he was recuperating. I kind of wanted it to be an expansion on that, and it just never happened. So that was kind of like intrigued.
No, they get back to it in the 3rd season, but then that gets stupid for different reasons.
Yeah.
I like the fact you stuck with it though, David. It's like, it was terrible, but I watched it all. I watched all of it. I had to.
Committed by that point, right?
However, I will gladly defend Discovery. It has its
I like Discovery.
And it has its stupidities, but by large and far, it is really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it until they moved it onto a different network, and I haven't got Paramount. So it's literally, it was like, it was on Netflix. It was fine. But yeah, I was enjoying that. I mean, probably an obvious question, David. So, did you approach Wizkids for Star Trek? So this is all your fault, basically.
We finished Horizons, and I was like, Nigel, we've been designing decks for Horizons for 19 months now. What am I going to do with my life now?
More decks.
More Horizons.
And then 3 days later, I had the email sent, and a week later, we had the meeting done, and 2 weeks later, I had the contract in my hands. So it was not a long process.
They were keen. They're like, yes, please. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice. So, I mean, in the game, obviously, you've got 6 captains in the box, right? So you probably got to remind me who they are, but you've obviously got
Picard, Sisko, and Burnham are the 3 Federation captains, and Shran, Sela, and Koloth are the 3 not Federation ones.
Yeah. So, I mean, thematically, they're all from different timelines. They're all from different areas or Star Trek.
Very good answers.
So, how are they playing against each other? How are they fighting each other?
I have two answers to this. The in-universe answer to this is there is a paragraph this long at the beginning of the rulebook that says that we are all cadets in the late 32nd century Starfleet Academy, freshly reopened Starfleet Academy, and we are running this simulation where we can recruit people from all of the historical database and to figure out which one of us is the best captain and can we do better than the historical legends. And then this is never mentioned ever again in the rulebook or any terminology of the game. This was exactly just to answer this question when people ask.
Yeah.
The much more relevant Doylean answer here is that so many Star Trek board games do very well with taking one piece of narrative from Trek, making itself very thematic for that one piece of narrative, and not very thematic for the Trek experience. Whereas I said, screw the narrative. You have 1,000 episodes of narratives to be reminded of.
Yeah.
You live the narrative in your own head.
And you do it.
You will feel like the Rio Grande just flew to that planet, and then Odo quickly arrested Quark's body, and you use that extra information to have Worf send down some extra security. You'll figure that out. What I need to do is make you feel like you're doing it. So I moved the theme from the high-level narrative to the low-level actions.
Yeah.
So the game does not have a high-level narrative, but every single move you do, you could describe as if it was half an episode or a scene or a conversation in an episode. You know, it's like, if you want to feel the theme, we'll give it to you. And two experiences helped here a lot. With Imperium, we developed the thematical parallels technique, where in Imperium, every card themed around writing was always about deck thinning. Every card themed around religion was always either about getting rid of unrest or taking unrest to get more actions, stuff like this. So taking this logic and applying it onto Star Trek, doctors cure incidents. Security guards either send down away teams or protect your away teams. And there's 20 more of them. Cloaked ships can send down away teams without giving the opponent an opportunity to block them.
Yeah.
And if you do it across enough cards, then after a while, when you pick up a new card that you have never seen, but thematically you know what it is about, you'll feel what the card should do, and the card will roughly do that. And conversely, if you have no idea what that ship is because you haven't seen that episode, but you play the card, you kind of feel what those guys are about. So,
I mean, you're creating it's a great decision, right? Which is, there's no corner of Star Trek that you can't go to by exactly. doing that. So you can go, I can go anywhere, any episode, any series, any bit of faction, any bit of lore, whatever.
Star Trek doesn't have a central narrative. No. It doesn't have
it's a feeling.
A cop show, a lawyer show, or a bunch of commandos going down the. Why limit ourselves to that? Just open the neutral zone in the middle with the location tug of war is there, but even there we haven't really defined what we're doing. It's called securing a location and taking control of it, but those are just gameplay terms. When it's Picard doing it, we're not picturing you going in with a war fleet and taking capture. It's sending probes. I mean, the encounter mission for the Federation is to take control of a planet, put a ship on it, then put an extra away team on it, and then log it. I run a complete survey of a new location that you just scanned. And how is this card called? It's called Strange New Worlds. So, and you put all these little inputs together, and you're feeling what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like you putting the little stepstones in, and like you say, thematically, you're building the bridges between it all. And it's the same with Imperium. It's you for a set of cards. You feel like you are advancing that civilization. It's really clever. Yeah.
And the other experience that I had since that helped me a lot on this was Perseverance.
Yes.
Because Perseverance was was where we did narrative mechanisms, where if the mechanism was called defend against dinos, then you had to take something to defend with and put it in front of a dino. If the action was explore the jungle, then you had to take something, put it in somewhere, and take off something from the jungle instead. So everything did what it said it does.
Yeah.
And as the episodes got more and more involved, we had less and less get a resource type actions, because those were the least thematic. By episode 4, I don't think we even have more than half an action that gives you a resource. So taking, like, would this action be thematic enough for perseverance, and applying that logic to as many as possible? Certainly I can't apply it to everything, because there has to be actions that are just like, here, take a dilithium, you
get stuff. Yeah.
But as soon as this card makes me think of something, how can an action mapping makes me feel like that? And then once I found it, use Imperium's parallel mechanisms pattern on it, it just paints the world.
Yeah.
So instead of having a game narrative, we have mechanisms narrative.
Yeah.
And
but it's play narrative, isn't it?
Theme on it, instead of putting theme on it, we put parallel mechanisms on it. And those two things, yeah, those two things just bring it together.
That's awesome. It also means that you can expand it, right? I'm not going to ask you. Don't worry, I'm not asking you.
So far, nobody on BGG has managed to make a reasonable request for a deck that I either haven't already came up with, or that person is in somebody else's deck, therefore not going to be.
Don't need to.
Sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I do have one particular deck that I'm looking forward to, but
go tell me.
You want me to tell you? I don't know whether it would actually work, because technically, I'm trying to think of a captain that this would fit for. But I absolutely love the Ferengi.
We take the term captain increasingly loosely.
See, that's what I was hoping.
Captain-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Ferengi are absolutely my favourite race. I just find them so funny.
Yes, I have at least one Ferengi on my list.
Oh, good man. That's what I was hoping for. So like hopefully being kind of like a trade mechanism, that kind of thing. We won't ask, but the point is, as long as they're in there somewhere, I'm happy.
Well,
eventually,
sometime soon you'll find out how Burnham and dilithium works, and since you know that our other resource is called latinum. I'll let you figure out how the Ferengi.
They like latinum, a lot of it.
Yes. Can't wait. So you mentioned before that it's a mechanical sequel to Imperium. I'm just a little bit curious with the less limitations. With I imagine with Horizons and Imperium in general, you had to tell part of that theme. Did you find this a freer experience? Would you say this is now I don't want to say a better game, but this is more the way that you envisioned wanting to make Imperium, a bit more streamlined changes? Go on.
Yes and no. No, because Imperium is we made the best of what Nigel's original vision was brought out to be. And Nigel's original vision was a deck builder with a tableau building element to provide that feeling of a build-up. And his central mechanism was always the Barbarian to Empire switch. The first working title for the game was Barbarian to Empire. So what a catchy name, I know.
Should have stuck with it.
But yes, there are some mechanisms that were specifically designed to fix complaints about Imperium. Very few of them, most notably the star cards being replaced with the tracks.
Yeah.
Because we wanted every victory point to be either trivial to count or be visible throughout the game instead of having to cross-reference.
Yeah.
But most of it is just simply coming from a different starting point, because Nigel started from a deck builder and added more and interlocking things to it, and then when I came on board I started adding more interlocking things to it, and then we started refining those interactions, and then we added the trade routes on top of it to create a new kind of interaction. Whereas this is more like, okay, we found out what's the one kind of deck builder that I don't hate, what else can be done with that mechanism?
Yeah.
And taking And why does it work in Imperium? Because it's essentially taking a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards, shuffling them together, and going nuts on them.
Yeah.
So where is that little spark that turns that into a fun game? And the three things we identified was the tableau building, the private reserve cards, so that you can have an arc guaranteed to it, which I love doing Imperium like the next guy, but when you make your turn 2 plan, you have no idea what will happen on turn 7.
Yeah.
Because the game does not have a guaranteed arc, which from a medium heavy game is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're designing a heavy game, you can't do that.
No, just fall
because
apart.
If a heavy game doesn't have an arc, then, then some people will have a good time, some people will not have a good time. And yet Imperium and the specialist starter can guarantee that once you know the game, you will have a good time because we've tested out every or many possible ways the arc can go, and we've made sure that none of them is table flipping.
Yeah.
So, and the third one was, and only the third one is approaching it as if it was as I said, quote unquote, Magic the Gathering like card where cards do what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Like the very first thing that we had to, when I was explaining the game to the Wizkids team, was like, they were like, can we make a player aid of the actions? I was like, okay, first item on it will be play a card. Now what's the second item? Nothing.
Because it literally is all there. Everything you need to know is all there.
But so in a way, Star Trek is both more streamlined than Imperium and more complicated. So it's not. We didn't streamline Imperium. We took the same bricks and built a different game. So there are other reasons besides theme to pick both of them.
Yeah. I think, going quickly back to Imperium, I think one of my favorite things is obviously the diversity of the decks and diversity of the factions. And I just love the fact that I know you and Nigel will probably having a competition and going, right, I've come up with this mad deck that does this, and this, and you're like, let me...
Towards the end of Horizons, we did have not...
Gauntlet Throne. Right, I'm going to come back with another one.
Nigel did the Inuit and the Cultists.
Yes.
And which one was mine? The
Polynesians, wasn't it?
Oh, Polynesians, we redesigned back and forth. Okay. And the Martians was my idea. He redesigned it, and then I fixed his redesign. The Polynesians was bounced more than once because the Polynesians was incredibly hard. I think that was one that survived my crazy ideas. But usually my ideas were too crazy, so those usually have to be toned down. And I learned a lot from them. So my ideas for tech tends to live a lot quicker than my ideas for Imperium used to, because Star Trek is built along my logic lines, while Imperium was built along Nigel's logic lines. So that's why for me, it's easier to explain them, but they are not improvements, they are Turcifications.
Yes.
So, and I can see plenty of people for whom those are negatives. So
more of a mechanical uncle then, basically.
Mechanical uncle. Not the man from Uncle, the mechanical uncle.
The mechanical
I like
uncle.
that. I'm using that.
Fair enough. So also, I was having a little look through your 6 captains in the starter set. And I thought it was really interesting. You seem to have taken a really diverse kind of look at many different sort of shows, many different of the series, but you also did a mixture of the different races and a mixture of the different genders as well.
To highlight the amazing capabilities of the asymmetry framework.
That's what I was going to ask, whether that was kind of trying to keep everyone kind of, or if you like this, then that series, then you've got someone in there for you, or was it more just a mechanical kind of to keep people unique and for the thematic purposes?
Let's get the no Kirk conspiracies out of the way. The only person the selection was meant to please was me.
Excellent.
So the way these captains are picked is, do I like them? Or do they make sense to me? And then after we pass that gate, I ask Wizkids if they have any marketing opposition or requirements towards me. And then I ask them if switching these two would make them like better or not. And that's it. Like the amount of creative control they have given me is ridiculous. And I have been basking in that. So feel free to blame me for everything. Diversity, both for representational and for gameplay reasons, are entirely on purpose.
Yeah.
Because why not?
I think for me, though, like the fact that I mean, I like Star Trek. I'm a fan, but there are certain captains in that box that I don't know. So, and it's the same thing that I did with Imperium, right? So you start off with Imperium classics. Your Romans are in there, like, you know. Yeah, I know who they are. The Celts, this, that, and the other. And then as you kind of went on, there was like the Sassanids. And like, who the hell are the Sassanids?
For Horizons, we actively were picking people that we knew that most people at best have heard of, or heard of an umbrella term for them, but not for these people. Like the Abbasids, most people would have heard of as the Arab Caliphate.
Yeah.
The Sassanids, most people would have heard of as the Neo-Persian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
But the Neo-Persian Empire was 3 different empires, one after each other, and they hated each other. So it's like we took the middle one, the most exciting one, the one that went toe-to-toe with Rome and won several times.
Yeah.
With the Arab Caliphate, we had to be trickier because some of them are religious issues. So we picked one that did both warry things and civilized things. So, but yeah, it's picking the civilizations in Horizons was a journey by itself.
Yeah, but what it made me do is research and look them up and go, right, look, where in the world are these guys from? Or
I think the number of people who Googled the Vagadao after Horizon came out is numerous.
And I think the same will happen like on this Star Trek captain's chair, which is actually, I don't know that person. What series are they from? And actually, as you get to play the decks, and you get to see the characters, and you get to see the stories that you kind of tell them. What's it going to make me do? It's going to make me probably go back and watch some of these series that I've never watched before.
So in the rulebook, like in Imperium, we did the 1-paragraph introduction for all decks. Here we have a meet the crew.
Okay. Yeah.
2 pages in the end, and after the thematic blurb, which has a bit of mechanisms woven into it, the last paragraph is referenced episodes to watch.
Nice.
Excellent.
If you enjoyed this, watch these. Yeah.
I haven't done that for the common cards because almost every common card is from a different episode, so I would have had to list like 70 plus episodes there. I am thinking of compiling that list for BGG if I have the time, because I know which episodes they came from. But yes, it's very much episode hunting and knowing what feelings I invoke, and sometimes I make very controversial choices on purpose to make people look at, like Sela, the Romulan commander from TNG, Tasha Yar's daughter from the alternative timeline. She's in 3-4 TNG episodes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I took every single Romulan plot not conducted by the Tal Shiar, because those are saved for future possible Tal Shiar decks. Every single Romulan plot not conducted by the Tal Shiar, and folded it into this deck.
Right.
Her 2 most expensive developments are Shinzon and the Scimitar. Like, and Nemesis is not exactly the most beloved movie.
Plus, I like it. I quite like it. Yeah,
it's fun, but in a very weird way.
Yeah,
but and making the thematic link between the semi one-off Romulan enemy from the series with the semi one-off Romulan enemy from the movie, like, but yet when you play it, and since in the deck it's like from your starting hand, it's like, okay, do I want to use my remnants to fight, or do I want to use my remnants to just get me dilithium?
Yeah.
Like, are they just slaves or are they warriors? And the more you use them for warriors, the more likely that you will want to buy the Riemann developments instead of the Romulan developments. But the better the Riemann developments get, the more demanding they are. After a while, they start demanding to kill Romulans. But if you start paying their demands, then after a while you get the Scimitar, which is the strongest ship in the game.
Yeah.
So
for good reason.
It's like you're writing an episode right now, actually.
Exactly. So finding these links that I can make a story of. The Klingon deck, Koloth. It's not very apparent because the art team picked the Deep Space Nine look for the dude. I picked Koloth originally because I wanted somebody to represent the original series, because I will evilly ignore Kirk because, my evil agenda and everything. And then I went and took note of every single original series and 2 animated series episodes with Klingons in them, and involved its plot somehow in that deck.
Right.
So, and yes, the other 2 of their developments is Kang and Kor, because obviously Kor, Kang, and Koloff.
Yeah.
But everything from Private Little War to Day of the David, those are all there because the TOS never bothered universe building. But what if the Klingons had a plot? And I created that deck for you, and Orn Darwin is in there, but and
Awesome.
and Curzon Dax is in there because we know from DS9 that they were old friends. We've never seen them together, but it makes sense.
Makes sense.
So,
yeah, because that was a big plot line in DS9, wasn't it? It was Shadzia Dax, interesting.
So Curzon Dax is in the Klingon deck.
Awesome.
It made perfect sense for me. So
see, and even for myself, I was having a look at Shran, and I recognise the actor from other Star Trek roles. So even then, I was like, I know who that is, and that was Wayun, right? Yes, exactly right. So, but he was again a really cool character in
Shran is
DS9.
the greatest, one of the greatest the guest stars, definitely. So one of the main reasons to like Enterprise, by the way.
Really? Was he in a lot of episodes? Because as I say, I haven't got into the later seasons
of Enterprise. In the first and the second season, he was in, I think, 2 episodes each. And those are probably the 4 best episodes of the first 2 seasons.
Excellent.
Or maybe just 3, something like that. And then in the third season is like one big storyline, and then he shows up in the middle for one important episode, and then shows up at the final battle in the last episode. And then the 4th season has these 3-episode mini arcs, and one of the mini arcs is about him.
Nice. Got you. Okay.
And then he pops up for a quick hello on the last episode again, but the last episode is terrible and we don't talk about it. So I only make fun of it on a few cards.
Good idea. Good idea. What's your, if you know, I'm sure you do, but what's your favourite deck out of the core box then? Which is the one that you like playing the most, even though you probably haven't played them for a while?
I burned them the most recently, so that's the one which I remember the most. During testing, I know I played Koloff the most.
Yeah, okay.
Poor Picard and Shran are disadvantaged because since they are the only 2 I was allowed to use for demos, I am mildly bored of them because I have explained all the simple tricks to the first-time players, like
the lower difficulty ones, right? They're like the 1 out of 10 difficulty, 2 out of 10.
Yeah, Picard is the 1 out of 10, and Shran is the 2 out of 10. But so it's not that I'm bored of playing them; it's that I'm bored of explaining what's cool about them because I've done that a lot. So, but I've been staring at Sela's deck for the past few days, and it's like, should I go back and play Sela for fun? Nah, let's design a new deck. That's better.
But that's fun too. It's again
hellishly addictive.
Yeah, so. Good on you. So I think the immortal question is when if people are excited about Star Trek and excited about Star Trek's Captain's Chair, when can they get their hands on this, David? When's it coming out?
We'll be demoing it at Gen Con, but those will be pre-production copies.
Yeah.
I don't know what Wizkids' presence at Essen will be. That's
But don't know. We'll see if they're there, if they're not, whatever.
And their release is they said Q4, so I would guess late October, early November. Probably like stuff like BGG Con, it'll be there by then. I don't know. Don't take it as a promise.
But we'll see when it comes out. I'm definitely intrigued. I mean, I'm hoping to get a little cheeky game in with Paul Grogan tomorrow.
I'm actually quite jealous. I will have a go.
So I'm playing Shran, and he's playing Picard, which I think he's been practicing with Picard. So he's probably going to wipe the floor with me if he's played it a few times. But
you've played Imperium a few times.
I've played Imperium a few times, like nearly 40, I think. Now.
Yeah, a lot.
That makes you a lower intermediate.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm no means one of your play testers, David, but yeah, I love that. Bloody love that game.
The Imperium that I really love is that there's the solitaire games geek list on BGG, and the following story I have seen happen 2 or 3 times already. that somebody posts saying, so I bought Imperium. It looks a bit intimidating, but I bumbled through the game. It's interesting. I don't quite know if I like it. It's a bit weird. Next day, a second post comes. Okay, I've played it again. I think I understood every rule. It is starting to look good. And nothing from that guy for a week or two. Week or two later. Okay, I just finished my 16th game of Imperium. I'm starting to like it.
Yeah, he still comes back to it. Yeah. That's the thing with that game, man.
And then somebody comments underneath it, come back when you hit 50.
Yeah. Like when you see the patterns and you can see the synergies and it's so deep. That game is so deep. I still think it's probably my favorite solo game.
I always say that I hit 50 a third way into Horizon's development. So
wow.
I had that moment where I went, holy shit, this does even more than I thought it does.
How has this happened? It's just given birth by itself.
No, because like the game was fully playable before I started working on it. I did some systematic improvements to it, so blame me for the progress on the market and the garrison and the regions popping it. But like how the card effects are structured and what gives victory points, that was all done by what the suits are. Those are all long designed before I joined the team. Like 7 or 8 decks were like completely finished, and like 12 of them existed in some form before I started designing out of the original 16. And even the remaining 4 was more like me giving inspiration to Nigel and he designing them. Whereas Horizons was completely back and forth designing. So, but our testers were already in the 300s when I was like, okay, I played this game 15, 20 times now. Let's play it a few more times now.
Yeah.
And thinking it back, I suddenly remembered that when I first played the game 7 years ago or 8 years ago, my first 3-4 games had the exact same, I don't know if I like this game, but it's interesting feeling to it. So it's like, holy crap, that happened to me too. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely there.
You just play it though. You play it and you go, mechanically, I'm just going for the process and I'm doing the thing and And I always found the whole deck development process really intriguing and interesting, and how you start with your deck and you go through your nation deck and your development cards and ascend, all that kind of stuff. But then you get to the scoring and you go, I did really badly. And then you go, how do I improve upon this? And then when that clicks with you, when you kind of then, I can buy cards in the market, not to play them, but just solely just for this scoring and purposes, and just ditch it into history. And that's fine, that's viable. And that for me then opened it up. So it's like, look for cards you want to play, look for cards you just want to score, and not worry about anything else. And go for it. And then suddenly the scores start ratcheting up to, over the hundreds into the, I think my highest is Vikings. I think I've got 150 something. That's the highest I've got with Vikings.
I think you pretty much smashed me first time I played.
Yeah,
it was just like, everything popped off. It all worked. I mean, I could have calculated the end score wrong. There's always a possibility, but I think I wasn't using the app then. So it's a lot less.
I think you got 140 against me in my first ever game.
Did I?
I got like, I'm really pleased with this. I got like 90, and then he's like 146 or something. It's like, great.
Yeah, but again, Imperium has player-triggered end games, so
different.
If the newbie doesn't know how to end the game, you can get a lot of points. So Captain Chair has a reasonably well-behaved end game trigger, so even if you're really bumbling around, the game will shut itself down in 13 turns. Whereas for most of my playtesters, the game is now down to 8 or 9 turns. Holy crap, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah, I've not got going yet. Chill out. Cool. Any other points to add on Star Trek that you haven't mentioned, David? Anything that you want to kind of get across to our listeners?
A million things I want to say, but I can't.
I know. And that's why I'm not going to ask you, because, it's purely secretive, and you should keep those secrets because it just makes us excited.
So much stuff I want to geek out about, how this parallels into that, but those are all not yet officially commissioned decks, so I can't guarantee that they'll be like that a year from now or 2 years from now. And just get people arguing about that ahead of time, saying they want the other guy to be the captain is like pointless.
Yeah. So. But the fact is that you've got all this stuff on the hip, right? So, and if this game, when this game becomes successful, it will be. It's there, right? So it's just if Wizkids come a knocking, I've got more captains. Let's do it. So yeah, excellent. So we get to the kind of the end of the show, and what we usually like to do with our guest David is do some quick fire niche number ones. So niche number ones is an episode. We haven't done one for a while, have we?
No, we haven't.
We should do another one. But niche number ones is basically we take a series of scenarios of niche circumstances and pick your favourite game in that niche circumstance. So I've just got a few here. I mean, Kerley, do you want to?
Yeah.
So you want to? If you take your time on this, by the way, if you need to, or just quick fire it.
Okay. So the first niche for number one then is favourite game that everyone else hates.
Hyperborea.
Okay. What's that then? Have I come on? It sounds familiar. What is it?
It's one of the games that Tom Weser famously lit on fire and tossed it in the break bin.
Okay.
It's a game that masqueraded as an Ameritrash dudes on the map game, whereas it's just a bag builder with cubes and hardcore Euro cube combos, or as I like to call it, Orleans without the randomness.
Right, got you. You got Orleans. We haven't played that yet, have we?
No, it's in the
It
queue.
completely fired Orleans for me.
Really?
It's like no.
Can you still get it?
No.
No, fair
It
enough.
has been out of print since the year it went into print.
Oh, fair enough.
Because everybody considered it a total failure. So it's amazing.
Oh, okay. One of those games that just sunk, but you're like, why?
Yeah. Because they completely mismarketed it. Because if you look at the cover, it's 6 super fantasy fighter dudes, and the game comes with 40 miniatures, which are just player card tokens.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, fair enough.
Great answer.
Right. Favorite game that doesn't have a Dávid Turczi solo mode?
well, that's easy because
Is it? Because you got most of them.
Ha ha. Oh shit. I thought it would be easier.
Yes, stumped him.
Damn, I have wormed my way into everything I like. God damn it.
There is a one, is there? No.
I mean, Brass is the safe pick.
Yeah, that's fair.
Got you.
But that just because Mauro made such a good solo mode into it that I didn't need to worm my way into it afterwards.
Fair enough. What's your favourite game that you've lost your shit over? So the one that's made you tilt. I didn't have any until
Imperium's
recently.
mine.
Twilight Imperium for you, is it?
Definitely.
When I realized how badly I'm doing in my last game of Tricarion, that made me really lose my shit. I was like, what the hell is happening here? Like, how?
I should be better at this.
It's like I used to hold my ground against the lead designer on this game. What's happening here?
Is that with Academy, though? I'm assuming it's with Academy, right?
I don't remember whether we played this with the Academy or not. And one of the guys are like, whatever game I teach it to him, he always beats me at it. So that's okay. But at least I tend to be like competitive for the second place.
Yeah.
And we were and I taught it to all 3 of them, and I was fighting for 3rd place. And it's like, what the hell is happening here? I don't know. I must have been out of it that day. So.
Sometimes I feel with Tricarion, and keep in mind, this is a top 5 game for me, so I absolutely love it. Sometimes I feel like if someone else happens to get in the way of your strategy, you're just going to get a worse score. You know, like if someone else goes for the trick that you're going for,
you're screwed, don't you?
Yeah, it just puts a big blocker in the way, and you can get a way around it, and that's part of the skill of the game. But
I think is identifying that someone is about to get that trick. That's half the battle. But usually I'm so locked into my own mind puzzle that it's always a surprise.
I know the feeling.
Where's that gone? Where's that trick gone? Oh yeah, I've just bought it, you bastard. Which is usually the case. So there we go. Cool. Good to get some Tricarion love because, one of our faves, right? So now, David, let's wrap the show up and let you get back to designing more decks for Star Trek or other things that you may be doing. But no, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you tonight. And, as we said at the start, you've designed some of our favourite games that still hit our tables. So we really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, Anachrony is my number 1 game, so thank you, David.
He bloody
really
loves
appreciate it.
He's good at it as well. That's the annoying
Very
thing.
happy to hear. Now go play Voidfall then.
Yeah.
To be fair, we were just chatting off camera before we came on that I need to give it more tries. I've only played it 3 times.
Bloody great. Play more.
To quote the classics, come back when you're at 50. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the show. It's been awesome to catch up with David and learn more about Star Trek Captain's Chair. If you want to get more information, then please check out our show notes. But we just want to thank everyone for listening. And obviously, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your gaming group, share it with your friends, because every share always helps the pod and we appreciate it. If you want to support the show, we are on Coffee. So if you want to support on a one-off or even on a monthly subscription, we'd love that. That's the reason why we can level up our sound game and just invest it all back into the show to make it even better for you guys. So we'll be back again next time with some more board gaming content. And the only thing to say is, whose turn is it anyway? I think it's David's turn.